the all-new Nooga Radio in Chattanooga, 92.7 FM and 95.3 HD4. That's high definition, by the way, high definition, mega rich coverage, and a long range in that deep, penetrating, detailed, technologically advanced formula for delivering the local news here. We are Chattanooga's new favorite home for news and talk. And my name is David Tulis. I do thank you for tuning in to my program here. I just ask 5 minutes of your time, and hope to fill you in on what's important here in Chattanooga, and give you a perspective that the public school in Hamilton County, or from the county in which you were reared as a boy, did not teach you. And that is being loco-centric, caring about your place, caring about your home, and identifying with the place which God in his good providence, I would suggest, has put you in, right? Or should I say, in which he has put you. Put it that way. Don't end a sentence in a preposition. It's always a kind of a dangling effect on the listener to hear such a sentence. We are, as I say, all new Nooga Radio. And my name is David Tulis. I'm a former newspaper editor, 24 years as a copy editor at the Times Free Press, which I say without shame, and I say also without shame that I am a member of MSM, as they say, mainstream media. Though the mayor of Chattanooga, Andy Burke, says whatever he tells you, don't believe that he's in the media. Okay, he's not in the media. And Andy Burke wants you to know one thing, and that is because I'm in the press. The press is constitutionally protected and is free in Tennessee. It's totally free, and all matters are open to our review on your behalf, right? And in the press, the truth is a defense against libel. In other words, you can't be libeled if you're saying something true, namely or particularly of a public person. There have been two instances of gunplay in the Chattanooga area in the past couple of days. One is out of Knox County. WRCB is reporting this from WBIR television, and it's Monday. And here's the case where we need to have someone other than an armed man with gas and taser show up to help somebody, right? That's the kind of help we don't need, especially if that state actor fears for his life. You know, firefighters are a different breed entirely. They fear for their lives too, and yet they don't ever kill anybody. They're there to stop a fire and to save lives. They provide a public service, and they receive tax funding for their vigilance and their stations and their equipment and their hoses and telecommunications equipment and fire protection equipment. And police officers are there effectively to threaten. They're there all about the threat. The marketing of policing, however, is public safety and crime suppression. These are the way police market themselves. But their main goal is the management of people, particularly if we read the histories, particularly people who are involved in labor, who are poor, who are minorities, and who are members of suspect classes, such as black people. Black people are in a suspect class just sort of by definition. And ask any black man you meet, even one with children, even one in his 30s, in his 40s, ask him how many times he's been stopped by cops. And you, my listener, if you're a white person, you won't have ever had anything like that. But they have, because they are a suspect class. And policing is around the country designed to manage these people. Right? Policing is a political tool of municipal executive branches here in Chattanooga, that being, of course, the mayor, Andy Burke. Police are servants of the mayor. They serve the executive branch. And here in the WBIR story, it's about it's Knox County. A deputy is shot in the arm, and the man with whom he is engaged in a little friendly fire is hit also by a bullet in the shoulder. Now, what was the circumstance of this encounter? Well, the sheriff's office went to East Knox County Monday, And there's a man involved in an attempted suicide, okay? A man involved in an attempted suicide, and an armed man is going to come to help him. Does that sound a little laughable to you? Is there not some alternative method? We're Americans. We are the smartest people in the world, if we believe President Trump. We have solutions for everybody's problems, and we are beloved around the world for our being members of the greatest forces for peace and justice in the history of the world. Well, if that's true, how is it we can't figure out that you don't send an armed man trained to shoot, trained to fight, trained to resistance, trained to bring subjects and suspects and defendants into custody to help a man who's about to commit suicide? This is something we haven't figured out yet. We just don't get it. And that's because maybe Americans are like me. I'm the slow man of Chattanooga, which it's kind of an odd thing to think about. David Tulis, the slow man of Chattanooga, but it's true. I ask the dumb questions, and the question that's so dumb and so slow, man, that it's really better than the answer. That's what I want to do for you as your host here. He was responding to a report of an attempted suicide at the 100 block of Noe Hill Lane near Strawberry Plains just after 7 p.m. The suspect shot at the deputy. Okay. I'm trying to kill myself, get lost, the suspect seems to have been saying. The deputy fired back, and both the deputy and the suspect were taken by ambulance. It doesn't say if they were in the same one, to the University of Tennessee Medical Center. Now, the story of the day before Sunday is you have officers who are trying to solve a problem. Two men have a fight. One knifes the other. That's the man who's the suspect and now he was the defendant. And police arrive on the scene to bring peace, right? They come to bring peace. But guess what happens in Bradley County? This is not Sunday, it's Saturday. Very late, just before midnight. Our personnel started searching the area and came in contact with a male at about 12:39 a.m. That's Sunday. This is Corey Loftus of the Bradley County Sheriff's Office, and the Charleston Police Department's Jimmy Woody encountered the male. Notice how you have people are sort of dehumanized in these narratives on Billingsley Street in Charleston. This resulted, the little story says, in a physical altercation. So you have a man with a gun and armor plate having a fight with a man with a knife who's evidently fleeing a crime. Fearing for their safety, Deputy Loftus fired his weapon, hitting the male. Again, we have the male. And both officers immediately began life-saving measures. Now, that sentence is put in there so that we'll understand that these officers really care about the life of the man that they've shot. The male was transported to Tenova Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. So we have police killings across the country, and this one, if there haven't been intervening deaths across the United States, would be 1,133rd death by officer this year. So every year, cops kill about 1,200 people, and they're supposed to keep the peace, right? That's why we have police officers to keep the peace. There needs to be, I would say, an extraordinary review in our hearts and minds as people, especially here in local economy in Chattanooga, where we have a say, we have influence. We can make things change because we're here, right? And we can talk to the people about whom we complain. If we're complaining about David Roddy, the chief, we can go to him, or we can write him a letter, or we can call him in a local call and say, I'm subject to your officers, and here's what I have to say. And that's what David Roddy does. His work is as much management, is as much PR and community relations, as they call it, as his management of his military operations, paramilitary operation on Nicola Highway. Now, I'm reading again the petition for injunction that's before the criminal court of Hamilton County by Neil Pinkston, the district attorney. Thinking about that, I'm trying to gain insight into the whole problem of aggressive policing, which this is a form of aggressive policing, which disregards constitutional protections and is part of a larger scheme of policing that Alex Vitale, in his book The End of Policing, develops in his various chapters. I'm in the middle of reading the one about gang suppression, and some of these things that he said, that Vitale says, are backed by studies of police operations around the country by members of academia. Are, in a way, they're kind of obvious. One is that aggressive policing through intense personalized harassment by the officers of these gang members breeds cohesion among these young men who are often, Vitale says, loosely connected with a particular group. Now, Neil Pinkston's petition for injunction cites the Grape Street Crips, which he says are emerging in Chattanooga with a presence and has between 15 and 20 members. And the other one is called the Gangster Disciples. And these, he says, regularly sell illegal drugs in plain view and engage in other crimes to the detriment of neighborhoods. Now, that phrase, to the detriment of neighborhoods, is to be questioned, because most people in these poor areas, they're not directly threatened by these young men. Okay, they're not directly threatened, but the question is, in black neighborhoods where the poor live, who are subject to police management practices, whom do common people fear the most? Well, they fear the police the most, and some, of course, fear the gang members. But gang members, they don't care about old women and families. They don't care about people like that. They're not there to disturb the working man next door on one side and the working woman with the 3 children and no husband on the other side of her. They don't care about these people. They're not direct threats to them, and probably, I would say, have a sense of a paternal sense of their neighbors. I'm willing to believe. Okay, now Vitale, in his review of this phenomenon of suppressive activity by cops of gangs, points out that policing mechanisms that are of the kind Neil Pinkston proposes misunderstand gang culture and black and minority culture. These organizations are not vertically integrated as the police department is, right? If they're unofficial private associations and groupings, they're not organized. They are horizontal. There's horizontality among these relations among these young men and women. It is not vertical integrated. There's not a command structure as clear as in the official organization of the city. Having these people be put on watch lists, as it's occurred in other cities, they're in the database, makes them less employable. And another important point: if you want these people to be reformed and to have a stake in local economy and the free market, you can't label them, right? You can't put them in a database. You can't give them a name, even identifying them and saying, well, this man has 15 points, so he's clearly a member of a gang, even though he only was a member, right? If you were a member, you are a member. There's a kind of labeling that Vitale suggests is bad for these young men. It hardens them in a criminal identity. Would you not say that that's true? They become hardened in their criminal identity because they've been identified by the enemy, that is the police, as a gang member. So, well, if you say that I am, well, then I am, and they're going to be members in defiance of the state. So you have blacklisting with enhanced penalties, and employers find out about these lists, right? They find out about these lists. The lists have been shared, and employers can scrape off applicants who were at some point part of a gang. Though a man 19 applying for work in your business was on that list when he was 15, right, 4 years ago, but he's still on it now. There's no way to get off the list. You can't. A man who was on the list and is not involved in these relationships anymore can't get off. He just. Who do you ask? Who do you ask? Write a letter to Neil Pinkston and say, "Can you get me off the list?" They don't do that, and no, there's no authority, because these are private organizations, right? These police organizations are private organizations, and they do what they want, right? They do what they want, and in some respects they're bound by the law, but they are largely private initiative organizations. And then also, as Vitale points out, having these lists and having a suppression activity targeted against a few people damages what are called community relations, right? Damage that ethic of getting the people of a neighborhood to cooperate with you. Because if you have an injunction that bars some of these men, there are about 34 or 35 of these young men who are targeted. I think they're all black. You are, and you say you can't associate with these other people. You can't be in the same block with them. You can't be in the same room with them. You can't be in the same car with them in these so-called safety zones. you are damaging their outward relations. You're criminalizing private activity. You're criminalizing people who under the gang nuisance statute, since gang activity is called a statutory offense now in the Tennessee law. You damage your otherwise noble efforts to have people accept your officers, think of your officers as their benefactors, not their enemies, right? And not suppressors of your race. Even black officers in the black neighborhoods are not viewed in a friendly way, because they represent the force of the man, right? Now, also, just a final point about this gang junction petition is that gangs are amorphous, and these listings with their very low thresholds to get on the list, these listings lock people in place. Just what you say you don't want to do. You say you don't want to lock people in place. So then why do you, as the state actors, put them in these databases and harass them? And the harassment is another thing. And that is something I've been thinking a lot about. How is it that these young black men don't know their rights? Well, if they go to public school at all, they're not going to learn their rights there. I think the only way they can learn their rights is to read what I have to say at Nooganomics.com, where we cover these topics, and perhaps pay attention to certain guests we have on our program here, the David Tulis program, on our all new Nooga Radio. That is who we are, and I am David Tulis, your host here on the David Tulis Show, where we understand that things move, right? That things are flexible, and we need to have liberty to be prosperous. We can't have convictions. We can't have government lists that block people, that mark people for life, and we need to keep people out of the court system. If you have a young man who's in the court system once and then twice and then thrice because you've been harassing him, right? He spouted off at you when you stopped him for not using his turn indicator, right? That's a criminal case, right? Well, he's now got a plea bargain for disorderly conduct on his record, 1, and then 2, and then resisting arrest. Well, that was number 3, all because you're harassing him. How is that going to help him? How is that going to help Chattanooga? Do we want that young man to flee Chattanooga and go elsewhere? Or do we want him to stay here? Do we not want people to stay in the city of their birth and to rear themselves or become reared or grow up to be productive, useful men who go into business, right, and provide a service? And I think the whole police operation against gangs is simply wrong. It's simply wrong. It is not sustainable. It does not bring the results. And Greg Vitale, I'm holding up his book here for you watching me live on YouTube and also live on Facebook. Or just by the way, on Facebook, it's Nooga Radio, and on YouTube, it's Hot News Talk Radio. You can just Google Hot News Talk Radio or search for that term in the YouTube window, and then you can read the title. It's in bright red, Alex Vitale, The End of Policing. I highly recommend this book, by the way. I'm going through it very slowly, carefully marking things of interest to me. He's a liberal, right? I'm not a liberal. I'm not a conservative. I am, though, a classical liberal, which means free market oriented, a skeptic of the state, anti-war, and pro-market, and you could say anti-state in the sense that the state, in fact, has proven itself not to be man at his best, right? Man at his acme, as Hegel and the other German philosophers who pontificated back in the 1600s and 1700s thought. They wanted to make of it, as Marx developed their ideas, they wanted to make of the state the best of humankind, the best of mankind, where man can save himself through his state, not his kingdom, not his country, but his state. The state is a corporation apart from the people. And as President Trump made that confusing, showed that he's confused on that point, we can understand that you might be as well. But we are here proposing the free market and favoring the country. America is the country, but the state, the United States, well, I think we're seeing the end of it. And every empire, according to one noted historian, lasts 250 years without exception. And we are just at the birthday of the 250th year of the federal empire known as the United States, America. Also, if you listen to President Trump's speech, we're America, and he's America too, right? we need to have growing doubt about the validity of this religious concept. Law is religion externalized, right? Culture is religion externalized. And we're seeing that in practice. Our culture is certainly broken, is certainly a very self-centered form of religion where we are worshiping ourselves through our state, right? Through our better self in the United States government, of which now we have President Trump at the top. And though he's very much for deregulation, there's a lot else in his agenda that is very much for security, right? Security and surveillance and policing and strong military men standing guard over our liberties. That's kind of what we see in his recent speech. David Tulis.
The Tennessee Valley's news talk leader, Nooga Radio, digital.